Hey everybody, it's Anthony Pirozzi, and I'd like to take a look at the Italian national team as we enter the European Cup 2020 starting this Friday on June 11th. But before I start, I'd like to dedicate this to my father, Tony Pirozzi, who's no longer with us. He passed away last August. This will be my first European Cup without him, and I miss him each and every day. But his memory lives on with many of us when we think about the sport of soccer and look back to his managing and leading his teams Olympia, as well as the San Pedro Italians back in the 60s and 70s, as well as his 47 years of broadcasting the soccer scores from Italy on his Sunday radio program. I know he's with us, and he will be always remembered by many of us in our community. I'd like you to look at a couple pictures on the screen there. There's one of my dad and I after Napoli beat Juventus in Coppa Italia last year. The picture below that is his San Pedro Italian flag that was used during the 70s, especially when the San Pedro Italians won the first division championship for the Greater Los Angeles Soccer League. I know many of you watching were there. Some of you may have been around as well in the 60s to watch Olympia, but I still remember that Sunday at Daniels Field when the San Pedro Italians won the championship of the Greater Los Angeles Soccer League's first division. Great memories. And then the picture down below is my family holding the San Pedro Italian flag in Ischia just after the national team of Italy won the 2006 World Cup. So great memories. Again, this is dedicated to my dad, Tony Pirozzi. All right, so let's look at the Italian national team and the European Cup in general. First off, the European Cup is being held in 11 cities across Europe and across 11 countries for the first time. And the tournament back in 2016 expanded to 24 teams from 16. So this means that the top two teams from each of the six groups will advance to the round of 16, plus the best four third place finishes. So it gives some teams some opportunities if they finish in third place to still advance. The final is at Wembley Stadium in London, England. And then the host countries, again, England, Germany, Azerbaijan, Russia, Romania, Amsterdam, Spain, Hungary, Scotland, Denmark, and of course, Italy. So let's talk about the national team. So right now, Italy is ranked 7th. For most of us that understand soccer, the rankings really don't mean that much. It really matters what happens on the field. Things change as soon as the referee blows the whistle to get the game started. So we've all seen a lot of upsets over the years. So the rankings is nice, but it's just a point of reference. The last time Italy won the European Cup was back in 1968. I was probably, I think, almost 3 years old back then, so it's been a long time. They made it to the final back in 2000 of the European Cup to face France, but lost 2-1. And then that was just after France won the 1998 World Cup. So they had a pretty dominant team even back then. Then in 2012, they faced Spain and lost 4-0. This was just after Spain won the World Cup in 2010, as well as a European Cup in 2008. That was a great Spain team, and Italy fell to them 4-0. So with that, let's talk a little bit more now about the Italian team, the players, and the coach. The coach, Roberto Mancini, has really built a solid team, a team that represents the best of Serie A. There are 9 Serie A teams represented. And also, they brought back a couple players from Chelsea and PSG to make up the lineup. I'm just going to scroll through some of these players here, but the teams that are represented are Napoli, Milan, the Juventus, Torino, Lazio, Inter Milan, Roma, Atalanta, and Sassuolo. So as we get through here, great goalkeeping. The defense is very strong. Some familiar faces: Chiellino, Di Lorenzo from Napoli, Emerson, and so on. Bonucci's back, and so forth. The midfield is very strong. Verratti's going to be playing for the team. Very solid midfielder. Jorginho, Pessina, so on, Pellegrini, Chiesa, and so on. Barella's really been doing well, and Berdineschi is doing well in the midfield. The forwards are solid with Belotti, Insigne, Berardi, Immobile, and Raspadori. These are very good players. The thing I like the most about this team is one, very diverse set of experience from teams across Serie A, but more importantly, the goals are coming from more than one or two key players. If you watch the Czech game most recently, the 4 goals scored there were from 4 different players. This is very reminiscent to the 2006 Italian national team that won the World Cup. Of all the goals they scored in that tournament, it came from 10 different players. Not 1 or 2, but 10. So that says a lot about the way this team has been prepared, their abilities, and going to make it very difficult for the teams that face them. So let's talk a little bit about what will drive Italy to really advance in this European Cup. I think it's important to look a little bit back in history. After not qualifying for the 2018 World Cup, Italy really needs to prove to themselves, as well as their fans around the world, that 2018 was in fact a fluke. It was a one-off riddled in poor coaching and politics. They had a solid team, but really poor coaching. I'd like to take you back even further. When back in 1982, when Italy won the World Cup, you'll see Pirozzi holding the World Cup there with Gentile. One thing that people may not know or forget is that back then, Italy was just coming out of a betting scandal in Serie A where players were involved for match fixing, and they were suspended for 2 to 3 years, Pirozzi being one of them. But when he came back, as well the rest of the players back then in 82, they were again wanting to prove themselves that they were still the best in the world. And they sure did that. They had some great wins against, a key win against Brazil, Poland, and then beat Germany in the final. Pirozzi himself scored 6 goals. He won the Golden Boot and the Golden Ball, and of course, there he is hosting the World Cup trophy. So to me, that was their big driver back in 82. In 2006, there was another scandal. This time it involved managers in Serie A as well as referee organizations during the 04, 05, and 05 and 06 seasons that was discovered. Italy and the players, again, in my humble opinion, were going into that World Cup to say, look, we're not part of this. We're still the best in the world. Coming out of that scandal, they would beat France and become the world champions in 2006. So here we are in 2021 for the Euro 2020. Of course, a year later because of the pandemic. But I believe that the driver may be the fact that they did not qualify for the 2018 World Cup. But we'll see. We'll see if that factors into their play. Okay, let's look at the tournament now. We talked about the fact that I'm not here predicting Italy's going to win the European Cup. But I'm showing here the road to the final and if they are to win the cup, what it may look like. So I see Italy winning their group over Turkey, Switzerland, and Wales. Turkey finishing second. I think that should pan out that way. We may see, maybe Switzerland does well and finishes second, but I believe Italy should win Group A. Group B is looking like Belgium, and then for me, there's a toss-up between Denmark and Russia. I've gone looking at Russia to win, come in second, but then I said I settled in with Denmark and then having Russia in third, and then bringing up fourth place would be Finland. It's their first big tournament, and again, I think they're just happy to be there. So hopefully they'll have a great showing, and but I still think they'll finish fourth. Group C, the Netherlands should take Group C, followed by Ukraine, Austria, and North Macedonia. I know Pandev is playing for North Macedonia, but I still think they will. They may surprise us and finish third, but I have them finishing fourth. Group D. Now, I went for my Croatian friends. I consulted with my good friend Jack Beric about Croatia. In fact, we talked about all of these groupings here, and he thought Croatia would finish second. I have it a toss-up for first or second, but I went with his advice there and put England on top. They have a solid team. On paper, probably a better team at this point. But I would not be surprised if Croatia wins the group. That would be followed by Scotland and the Czech Republic. Group E, Spain should win that group outright, followed by Poland, then Sweden, and Slovakia. Then the group of death is Group F. So France, probably the best team in the tournament on paper. They won the last World Cup, faced with Portugal and Germany and Hungary. I think Portugal will finish second and Germany third, and Hungary taking up the fourth spot. Now, on to who could advance from the best third place teams. Now, remind you, there are 4 best third place teams that could advance, Germany being one of them. We'll talk about that in a second. I have Switzerland, Scotland, Sweden, and Germany. But being in the group of death, Germany may have their hands full and may not have enough points for some of the other third place finishers. So we'll see how they perform. They've been struggling a little bit through the qualifiers, but never count Germany out. So we'll see how that goes. But that is a tough group to be in. Let's go to the next set here, to the round of 16. Off to the quarterfinals, I think Belgium will beat Sweden, Italy over Ukraine, France over Switzerland, Croatia over Poland, Spain advances over Scotland, and then Portugal shuts down England and advances to play Spain, and then the Netherlands advances over Germany, and then Turkey over Denmark. So again, the road here, I think, I believe Belgium will be a tough game for Italy, but I do believe they could win and make it to the semis. I still believe the semifinal, a semifinal finish for Italy would be a great showing for this tournament, considering all they've been through the last few years. I see France beating Croatia. You know, again, rematch of the last World Cup final, but I think France is too strong this year. Again, probably the best team in this tournament, and they would go off and face Italy in the semis. And then I look to Portugal beating Spain, and then the Netherlands beating Turkey. So this brings up an interesting semifinal. I do think Portugal could make it to the Euro final again. They won the last European Cup. I believe that they can make it this time as well. And then again, not saying Italy will win this tournament. I think getting to the semifinals would be awesome. But I do think they, in order to make the final, they would have to go through France, which is a heavy lift. But if they do, they make the final, and then you never know what could happen against Portugal. And that would be the road for them to win. A tough road at that. But we'll see. Things could change and end up very differently for all of the teams in this tournament. And I wish the Azzurri well, rooting for them all the way. And let's hope that they could make it to the final. But again, if they don't, I think getting to the semis will be a great showing for them, but let's see how things pan out. So with that, I want to thank you for watching. Enjoy the Euros, enjoying being with family and friends, watching the games. And remember, Forza Italia!